Good evening and welcome to the public information session for the Pembroke Street West Reconstruction Phase 2, Crandall Street to Reynolds Avenue portion. Participating in tonight's information session from the City of Pembroke are myself, Marielle McLaughlin, Supervisor of Capital Works, and the Project Manager for the project, Brian Lewis, Manager of Operations. For McIntosh and Perry, the design engineers for this project, we have Jeff Horton and Phil Whalen, who will be presenting the information this evening. At the end of this presentation, we will answer any questions related to this phase of the project that may arise during the presentation. To get your questions through to us, please type them in the comments section below this video, and they'll be reviewed and answered at the end of the presentation. Property-specific questions will be addressed with the individual property owners in the weeks following the presentation. I will now turn the presentation over to Jeff Horton of McIntosh Perry.
Thanks, Marielle. I'm Jeff Horton. I'm with McIntosh Perry Consulting Engineers. We are the consultants on the design for this Pembroke Street West construction project. I'm going to run through a quick agenda for the presentation. We'll start by going through the project background. We'll then go through the project overview, discuss some proposed design elements, discuss some construction elements, discuss the next steps following this presentation. And as Marielle mentioned, we'll be opening up to a question and answer period at the end. And if you have any questions, please type them in the comment section below the video. So for this project, Pembroke Street West is a narrow, heavily trafficked urban road consisting of both commercial and residential properties. It's currently acting as a connecting link between Western Township of Laurentian Valley and the town of Petawawa to the core of the city of Pembroke. It is also acting as the main arterial road to the East End business section of the city. There's currently some safety concerns for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicular traffic in the area, and there's currently noted poor sidewalk connectivity. The existing lane widths for this phase of the project are 3.6 to 3.8 meters wide. The existing right-of-way ranges between 15 and 35 meters, with a significant portion of this phase being below the standard right-of-way width of 20 meters. The existing asphalt surface course is in poor condition, and the existing pedestrian signals are in need of replacement or upgrading, which includes compliance with the Accessibilities of Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA for short. There is also currently placement of existing utility poles that are too close to the roadway, which provides a bit of a safety hazard for oncoming vehicular traffic. The overall project for the Pembroke Street construction extends from Blakely Crescent to Christie Street with an approximate length of 2.86 kilometers. It's currently anticipated to be completed in 4 phases. The first phase from Blakely Crescent, which is at the city limits, to Crandall Street, with an approximate length of 700 meters, has already been constructed in the summer of 2020. Phase 2, which will be the bulk of this presentation, is from Crandall Street to Reynolds Avenue with an approximate length of 890 meters. It is scheduled to be constructed in summer of 2021. Phase 3 of the project is from Reynolds Avenue to Miramichi Lodge, approximately 660 meters in length, and it's scheduled to be constructed in summer of 2022. The final phase of the project, phase 4, is from the Miramichi Lodge to Christie Street with an approximate length of 610 meters, and is currently scheduled to be constructed in summer of 2023. As I mentioned, this is just a visual interpretation of the phasing. So phase 1 from Blakely to Crandall Street has already been constructed. The phase 2, which is the longest of the phases, from Crandall Street to Reynolds Avenue, will be constructed in summer of this year. And the final 2 phases will be completing in the upcoming 2 years. These slides upcoming, I won't spend too much time discussing, but they're an example of some of our engineering plans. So if you want to, feel free to take a look at them after the fact. Once this video is posted on the City of Pembroke's YouTube channel, you can pause the video, zoom in, and take a look if you'd like. Just goes over some of the overall scope for the project, addition of new sidewalks, but I'll touch on that specifics as the presentation continues. This slide is to show off some of the typical cross sections for the road. On the right side of the slide, you can see the existing curb, with the exception of areas that may need replacement due to poor condition, will remain existing. We're not widening or narrowing the road in any way. It's purely going to be a surface asphalt reinstatement with the addition of some new sidewalks and upgrades to the accessibility compliance. The new roadway pavement structure will consist of a 50mm surface lift with two 50mm base course lifts for a total of 150mm or 6 inches of new asphalt. The existing granular base underneath will be regraded and compacted prior to the placement of new asphalt. In terms of pedestrian safety, there will be new sidewalks constructed along the south side of Pembroke Street West. One section will be from Crandall Street to the end of the West End Mall frontage, which it'll connect with the existing sidewalks there. And then the second section will be on the south side of Pembroke Street West from Douglas Street to Riverside Drive. An additional effort to meet the accessibility of Ontarians with Disabilities Act, tactile walking surface indicators, or TWISIes, are going to be added at every reconstructed pedestrian crossing. These are in place to delineate any hazards for anyone who's visually impaired trying to cross the street. Some of the utility work that's going to be completed within the scope of this project will include improving roadside safety by moving some hydro poles on the north side of Pembroke Street West by Ottawa River Power Corporation. This will take place from Riverside Drive to Reynolds Avenue. They'll be just moved in behind the sidewalk instead of between the sidewalk and the road. A series of Bell utility poles will also be relocated on the south side of Pembroke Street West from Douglas Street to Riverside Drive, primarily to make room for us to put in a new concrete sidewalk. The existing traffic and pedestrian signals at both Crandall Street and Riverside Drive intersections will be upgraded with new LED lights and upgraded with all of the AOD compliant audible pedestrian signals and things like that. The island median at the Riverside Drive intersection is going to be redesigned to create more space for pedestrian crossings, as well as provide better right-hand vehicle turning movements coming out of the park onto Pembroke Street West. During construction, prior to construction, the traffic management plan will be prepared and submitted by the contractor for review by the city and the contract administrator. And the contractor is to include within this plan any necessary detour plans required for the project. Once the detour has been finalized, the details will be announced to the public via media release from the city of Pembroke. So during construction, the contractor is required to maintain access to owners' homes and businesses within the project at all times, as well as provide any signage to direct someone to that business. If any access or impediment to a home or business is affected during construction, the owners of the home or business will be notified in advance, and coordination for any alternative solutions will be made through the contractor. An example of this would be if a new concrete curb or a concrete sidewalk is placed in front of an entrance, just making it impassable for a short period of time. You'll be expected to be contacted directly by the contractor prior to that occurring. The next steps following this presentation, any feedback we receive during this virtual open house session or submitted after the fact via email will be reviewed by the city and by McIntosh Perry for consideration. The project is currently scheduled to be tendered starting June 3rd of 2021, and construction is expected to commence in the earliest summer of 2021. Phases 3 and 4 of Pembroke Street West are currently in design and are planned for construction on 2022 and 2023. So as Marielle said earlier, any questions related directly to the design can be asked and answered now. Any specific properly related questions can be directed to myself at the email indicated there on screen and will be dealt with in private. Please submit any questions prior to May 28th just to aid in any comments being addressed prior to tendering on June 3rd. So I want to thank everyone for attending, and I'll pass things back over to Marielle.
Thank you, Jeff. And as Jeff noted, if anyone who was watching has any questions, please type them in the question box. We did get a question earlier today, and I will direct this one to Mr. Lewis. This is from Brian A. What provisions will be in place to accommodate cyclists? Will there be a dedicated bike lane or a white line signifying a bike lane?
Thanks, Mary. I'll address that. Unfortunately, with the restricted road allowance width that we have on Pembroke Street West, there is not the ability to provide for a dedicated bike lane. We will be looking at and providing for as much as possible a pull off, so to speak, to allow for cyclists to pull off of the traveled lane width in those areas that are heavily traveled with vehicle traffic. Unfortunately, the width and the roadside hazards, as Mr. Horton has mentioned, utility poles and other utility infrastructure that's in the right of way prevents us from the ability to provide for a dedicated bike lane. We the city being, we have looked at the alternative, some options to help direct bicycle traffic off of the heavily traveled areas of Pembroke Street West onto less traveled areas, and help direct to the Algonquin Trail that runs parallel to Pembroke Street West and crosses Pembroke Street West to further up on the project, to help those cyclists to transverse across the city of Pembroke. So those are ideas that we're working on right now to try and assist with active transportation, provide for the safety of cyclists as well as the pedestrians that are using this roadway. Thanks, Marielle.
Thank you. There currently are no other questions that have been posed. We'll give it a few more minutes for people who may have joined late and are just catching up to the video to see if they have any questions they want to put up. We did get another question in. Again, this is from a Brian A. Will the boulevard be built the same way as Pembroke Street East, from Howard Street to the Pembroke Mall, with the paved section between the sidewalk and the road?
I'll take that one, Marielle. Thank you. It is the intent to, as Mr. Horton has provided in his presentation, the intent of the project is to remove and reinstate the paved surface of Pembroke Street West. The existing mountable concrete curb and gutter is to stay in place as much as possible. There are areas where we may have to use a barrier curb just to help pedestrian traffic and provide for the safety of pedestrian traffic in those tight areas where we may have to get around some of the utilities. But the intent is to maintain a mountable curb and gutter similar to what is in the city of Pembroke on Pembroke Street East, to allow for bike traffic to mount that curb or transverse over that gutter line into a paved boulevard between the roadway surface and the sidewalk. It is our intent to try and provide for that as much as we possibly can throughout the length of the project. Thanks, Mario.
Thank you. Thank you. There are currently no more questions, but it is worthwhile to mention that this project will involve detour routes to get traffic off of Pembroke Street West during the construction, and the city of Pembroke is currently working on paving the roads that will be used as the detour routes, and signage and media releases will be posted as construction progresses on the detour routes for this project.
Marielle, while we're waiting to see if we get any additional questions, so I'll take the opportunity to inform those that are watching. The city of Pembroke routinely provides our media releases, specifically road closures on our website. City of Pembroke website at pembroke.ca. As well, we use the service of Municipal 511, which provides for detour routes that residents can also look at to help navigate around some of the construction that is known to happen during the summer months. I thought that might be worthwhile mentioning. Thank you.
We did get another question. This one is from Caitlin, and she's asking, is the underground infrastructure needing to be replaced during this construction project?
Jeff, again, I'll take that one if that's okay with you. Thanks.
Sure.
The underground infrastructure for a good portion of Pembroke Street West has been replaced in recent years. It is still well below its estimated useful life. The underground infrastructure is not intended to be replaced under this project. This is basically a resurfacing project to deal with the surface asphalt and to provide additional sidewalks and pedestrian mobility. So the underground infrastructure is not intended to be replaced under this project.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I do have another question. This is from Dylan. Is there any warranty for the work that will be done? For example, if there are issues with the road condition after a year, is the contractor responsible for repairs? This might be a good one for you, Jeff.
Sure, I can answer that. In part of the contract that's made with the contractor, there is a warranty period, typically 1 year following construction, and any deficiencies that is noted by contract administrator or by the city to be in need of replacement will be fixed by the contractor.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions coming in. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening for tonight's presentation. The presentation will be posted and remain on the city's YouTube page. If you have watched this at a later date and you do have any questions, you can email your questions to the Jeff Horton email as noted in the presentation earlier, and we will respond to them accordingly. Thank you very much.